from the National IEC Results Center in Gallagher Estate in Midrand. This is our last broadcast for this week on SowetanLIVE, Elections 2024 with myself, Nwabisa Makunga. It's been quite a dramatic week, and I think the big story... However, the ANC, the story of the ANC, as I was saying, is a big one. And we're looking on our screen there, the ANC is sitting at 41%. It has not been a good week for you in the office, has it been?
It's been quite a good and exciting week. When we started the processes of elections, those who predicted the death of the ANC put us at 36. We're now at 41.
You're at 41, which is way so far.
I'm raising the issue about Centurion in Tswana. I'm raising the reality about Stretla. Remember, we were walloped by the EFF then in Stretla. We've reclaimed that space, massively so. I'm from Kagiso in Ward 10. We are leading with over 800 votes compared to our immediate contenders, and unlike the previous local government elections. And therefore, it's those things that we definitely have to look at. And the new kid on the block, and how the new kid has also taken from the IFP, Wamaimai. So any analyst who doesn't have an appreciation of the results per VD, I think it will be too soon. And remember, now you have 3 ballot papers.
Sure.
You don't have 3, you don't have 2. So part of what analysts have to do is to familiarize themselves with this complex new process that has actually complicated the process, but it is for the good of democracy.
So perhaps let me ask this question there. So there are a couple of things that are not in dispute, right, which you've raised now. So it is not in dispute that, of course, the voting is, or rather the counting and validation is still happening. It is not in dispute, that you are not at the 36% that you said, some people had put you on. However, there are very real questions and a suggestion which looks at the numbers that says the ANC in this election may well lose its majority power, notwithstanding the fact that you're saying, well, the picture is not necessarily complete. But if you look at the pace that that we've seen so far with the numbers, it certainly does look like the ANC is going to lose its majority power, not so?
There's no party that's going to be ahead of the ANC. That's a fact.
Yes.
You look at these patterns. There's no party. The ANC may not have the majority, but the ANC may actually be the one that has to help South Africa to move forward and build relationships with many South Africans who have voted for different parties, and that is something that we will only look at post the results.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize this point, though. Yes, the results are not finished, but we can't gloss over the moment of an ANC 30 years into democracy potentially losing its 50+1 majority. It may be the lead party still, right? And that's not really surprising. It may be the lead party, right? But the actual losing of its majority, that is a moment for the ANC, not
anything is possible. And I think for us as the ANC, we would make a reflection of being below 50% and determine where to, having looked at all other permutations. For now, what we want to do also is to respect the will of the people. That even if we may go below 50%, we are the leading party in terms of the number of votes that we receive. And therefore, we would want South Africans to work with us to stabilize this country, to appreciate the voting patterns, and therefore afford the ANC to define how the future will hold, starting with the parliamentary process.
KZN is obviously a big story, and I think earlier on you were speaking to colleagues and you were quoted saying the numbers in KZN actually surprised you. Why is that? Or rather, the performance of the MK surprised you. Why is that?
Look, it's the new kid on the block, and I think there are many things that have made the new kid to get these numbers, and those things we need to go back and look at them. We can only be able to explain if we know, is it Kwamashu? Is it Ward 1? Is it which ward and which VD? And what is the profile? And therefore, what is the message? As I've also said, the new kid has also surprised us that it has taken over from the IFP here in Gauteng, Wamaimai, an area where the ANC never even contest because we're taking it as an IFP base. And the voters there just turned things around. So All those things need to be looked at and be able to say, how then do we move forward, uniting our country, ensuring that there's the tolerance of diversity, and most importantly, building a South African nation.
I must say, I am surprised that you refer to the MK as a new kid. Of course, you know, the MK is the party and the brand is a new kid. But I mean, if you consider who leads it, can we really say it's a new kid on, you know, on the block?
I can't say it's an old age home. I can't.
Yes.
It's a new kid.
Yeah.
If we talk party politics,
Yeah.
that's the newly born kid in terms of the political parties. I think it is amongst the last few that came post the announcement of the elections and the processes going to the elections. The person who leads it has formed this new party. It's not a party. It's not an ANC. It's a new party and a new leader, and people are identifying with the new leader and the new party.
Do you think they're identifying with that party organically, or are they protesting against the ANC?
We think there is so much that has to do with this. It also has to do with some of the issues of cultural diversity that we're reflecting on.
How do you mean?
I think there are communities that always look up to elders, and that's a reality. Of course, there may be those who followed him, having left the African National Congress, and of course, there may be those who have left other parties. Because if you look at it, there are other parties in KwaZulu-Natal that have also gone down drastically.
Yeah.
You also have those that were also trying to claim the space in KwaZulu-Natal, and they've also not done much. And that on its own means it was not just beyond a protest from those that were within the ANC. The IFP has gone down, the EFF has gone down, the ANC has gone down. And therefore there's something that we have to read, rather than just within a wink of an eye find one explanation.
So I mean, in the next 5 years, let me start here. It certainly does look like, as far as the ANC is concerned, in KZN, it is out of power. I mean, if you look at 18% of, and I understand, of course, the election, I mean, the numbers are not fully in yet, but you're quite far behind, you know, the MK at this stage. It doesn't seem like there will be a way in which you can recover, not so.
I wouldn't want to talk about the ANC and measure it on the basis of MK. We don't know how far MK will go, but we know that the ANC is now 112 years. It has had its ups and downs. It has not been in power in KZN for many years. We've just been in power in KZN for a few terms of government, and therefore we'll have to go back to the drawing board and reposition ourselves and reclaim our space.
In your view, what has the ANC done with that power that it had in KZN?
It has done so well such that with the extent of disruptions and whatever, there was tolerance. Those who have been there before know the violence that has been there. An emergence of a new party did not actually make the work of the IEC difficult. That on its own, bringing stability, and here today we are all together here, is something worth celebrating. There's also been a lot of development in terms of rural development in KwaZulu-Natal, which also is something that we have to appreciate. The ANC in KwaZulu-Natal has also been able to make interventions in very demanding situations with the issues of climate change, the disasters that have been happening there, and the unplanned migration patterns into the urban areas of KwaZulu-Natal have also been a challenge to the ANC. Because unplanned urban migration does create problems in terms of development of human settlements, of roads, and all other social amenities.
Is there any accountability, though, that you take as, you know, as the ANC? I mean, if you look at, for example, eThekwini, right, and what has been happening there over a number of years, and people in eThekwini really talk quite loudly about the quality of life and the state of decay that that city actually finds itself in. Is there any accountability that you take?
We've taken accountability. You'll know, with these elections, we went back to review the 30 years of democracy and what we have been able to do. You'll know we went for the first time, and no party has done that, and reviewed the 2019-2024 elections manifesto. And out of that, that's where we went and took accountability and responded and had this manifesto that directed us on what we need to do moving forward. Of course, local government has been our weakness, our area of weakness. eThekwini is not an exception,
Sure.
and it is precisely because of that that the president had to put a presidential intervention team that has just made some intervention which we hope will not be disrupted by these new developments.
Throughout the week, we've been talking to various people, and there seems to be this recurring commentary that says we are essentially looking at a post-ANC South Africa, and I want to explain what they mean by that, right? Not necessarily an ANC that is off the face of the earth, but an ANC that no longer enjoys the strong majority that it did. And what does that mean for politics in this country as far as the ANC is concerned?
Look, it is this hard-won democracy that people can talk about diluting the influence of the African National Congress. But if you look at the world over, coalition politics, co-governance politics, issue-based relationships are a reality. Because as democracy matures, people then want to have wider choices that they make. The ANC will not stand against that to the people of South Africa. What the ANC would forever do is to remain in the trenches, working together with the people of South Africa, and hence we have committed ourselves to renewal, and hence we have continuously been quite open to work with everybody. We were the first to have a government of national unity. We are the ones who brought in Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi when we did not have to. But because we're managing stability in our country and stability in KwaZulu-Natal, it is us who, because we're dealing with inclusivity and the demographics of this country, we brought Ms. Patricia de Lille into the cabinet of the African National Congress. It is us who gave the IFP SCOPA in Parliament, a very strategic committee. Precisely because the ANC has never been threatened by inclusivity. And what is of importance is that as others had wished to see the ANC being outside of determining the future of this country, South Africans have given us a chance. We need to go back and reclaim our space, not arrogantly so, but reclaim our space in terms of ensuring that we accelerate change at a faster pace.
The moves you mentioned, are quite legitimate, but I'm just wondering, isn't this a different ball game though? So if you're thinking about the fact that yes, you brought in, for example, the leader of Good to be a minister, etc. At the time you were enjoying a majority. Isn't it a different dynamic altogether when you don't really have the option but to actually work with other parties compared to, when you're extending, let's say, grace, for example?
Who said we don't have an option of sitting as the opposition?
Are you prepared to do that?
We're prepared to do what South Africans would want us to do. We were a legitimate party and we were put into an underground. We accepted that. We went into exile. We've done everything. We've paid the price for this democracy and we'll still also pay the price for these results and come back.
Who are you wanting to talk to in the event of where you have to actually approach
We talk
somebody?
to everybody. We have been talking to everybody. Even now, you remember, in the midst of COVID, the president consulted everybody throughout the country. In this manifesto, we talked to everybody.
He wasn't trying to form a government though. So the question is about
it was about managing a period that government could not do it alone.
Yes.
So even now, we continue to say, we cannot do it alone. We must respect the voice of the South Africans. And therefore, those that have been elected by South Africans, they will be invited by the ANC, and it will be based on principles. Failing which, we'll humble ourselves and sit on the opposition benches.
What is the principle? Just last point.
The principle is about stability of this country. It's about protecting the economy and opening up for others to participate in this, in growing the economy of our country. It's about protecting the basic services that are so essential to the most vulnerable. It's about cutting and doing away with any system that has delayed the employment opportunities, that has delayed inequality in our country, including the issues around access to health services, the NHI.
Ms. Makunga, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We're just going to take a quick break, but when you return, I've got a few of my colleagues who are coming through as guests, and we're really going to go through some of the interviews that we've had earlier on today. Do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We are Arena. We are home to some of the most trusted and loved brands spanning news, business and finance, lifestyle and entertainment. We believe in connecting people of all cultures. We pride ourselves on creating and curating quality content accessed by consumers when and how they want. We are a multi-platform media network that delivers unrivaled possibilities to advertisers. We reach millions of people each month across our print, digital, TV, radio, events and entertainment divisions. Our mass reach and premium content make us the perfect partner for your business. We are news. At the heart of Arena is a world-class newsroom that is committed to providing the country with breaking news from around the globe. With some of South Africa's favorite and oldest publications forming part of our portfolio, we deliver to readers a continuous feed of news and information ranging from business news, sports coverage to political analysis. We are home to Times Live, one of South Africa's largest websites, and the Sunday Times, South Africa's biggest weekend newspaper. We are entertainment. We bring local and international entertainment to audiences while at the same time sharing authentic African entertainment with the world. You can leverage the emotional connection we forge through music and movies with strategic brand integration solutions. We are magazines. We are dedicated to bringing magazines to life through a unique blend of newsworthy information and entertainment-focused reading. From travel to decor, lifestyle to the most wanted items around, we bring it all to you. We are television. Through our channels, we take viewers from the latest trends in home decor to cutting-edge business and investment information to entertaining motoring programs. We are radio. Our 2 local radio stations are listened to by a progressive black audience who enjoy a diverse blend of music, news, entertainment and current affairs. We are events. We host and manage some of the most memorable and notable business and corporate events in Africa. We are ready to help you meet your strategic marketing objectives by creating solutions that entertain, innovate, and perform. We use imagination to develop impactful ad formats, creative and branded content, and data and insights to deliver intelligent solutions. No matter who you want to reach, we've got you covered because we are media. We are Arena.
Welcome back. We're live from the IEC National Results Center at Gallagher Estate. This is Elections 2024 on SowetanLIVE, and I'm really excited about this next lot. So I'm joined by colleagues, right? Cadres who we are in the trenches together. Just to talk about some of the conversations that that we've had throughout the week. I've had, just now, for example, an interview with Nwabisa Makunga of the ANC. I don't know if you guys watched it, and maybe let me start with you, Thabiso. What did you make of her responses? Denial, perhaps?
Yeah, I thought actually we were joking about it and saying, is this those 3 phases of grief? First, denial, and then at some point you get to a point of acceptance. I think she was quite curt in her responses. She was not quite clear. She wanted to drill down into the numbers, and I think that's quite disappointing because everybody can see what the picture that's emerging is looking like. So you would have expected better from the ANC, and also a little bit of humility and acceptance of the situation as it is, so that you begin to give even their own supporters some little bit of hope.
Yeah. Makuru? I mean, she's saying, well, we're taking it with we're not with arrogance, right? But I mean, does the ANC know how to be non-arrogant?
No, I think the ANC will respond as the ANC at their own time. So I watched parts of the interview. I also agree with Thabiso for the parts that I watched. That I mean, they should take responsibility. I mean, at this level of counting, the last time we had the election results, the ANC was doing much better. It was far ahead, and now it's not where it used to be. Just that requires some acknowledgement. It requires some humility, as he says, you know, and they must just. Take responsibility for
collective responsibility
for what they've done to this great revolutionary movement of our country. So now it's on its knees. The nose is bleeding. The buffalo can't do what buffaloes do.
Stand tall.
So, I mean, the interesting thing, and quite seriously, is that obviously, an ANC losing majority power really takes us into a different era of South African politics, right?
Yes, correct.
So we saw in the months leading up to the election, we were talking about a multi-party charter. I mistakenly called it a moonshot in one of the interviews, and I was wrapped around the knuckles for it. But I mean, I want to start perhaps. There's a video I had a conversation earlier on today with the leader of the ACDP. Kenneth Meshoe, who was kind of confirming or affirming their support of the multi-party charter, although the numbers, of course, are not looking at all great for them. But perhaps let's take a look at what he had to say.
Obviously, we wish that we were a little higher with a little more votes, but we know that the votes are still coming in. The metros have not yet been counted. So we are hopeful that we will improve our current position.
As things stand, I think at about midday you were at 0.61%, right? And I'm not sure, if there's any drastic movements, but possibly, if you retain your seat in Parliament, how much impact do you think you've had over the last however many years as far as in Parliament is concerned?
Well, we had definitely a very positive impact in Parliament, and also our MPs obviously have been doing very, very well. And outside Parliament also we have done things that until today many people, including churches, are thanking us for. How
do you envisage a post-ANC democracy? And again, I make the point to say it's not necessarily an ANC that is completely off our politics, but it's no longer the dominant party. You are obviously part of the multi-party charter. How do you guys view a post-ANC South Africa?
Well, obviously we are glad that the ANC is losing the majority. It seems they will lose their majority. We are happy about that. And that obviously increases the chances of other political parties through a coalition to have an opportunity to rule, which I believe would be the right thing to happen and would be the best thing for South Africa, because other political parties have seen the mistakes of the ANC and they've heard the protest. People were protesting. The protesters have been saying, these people don't care for us. They only care during elections, and the opposition parties are aware. We will not repeat such mistakes. We will be with the people and ensure that their services are not failed, but they get their services.
So perhaps, Thabiso, let me start with you, right? And all the members of the multi-party charter that I'd spoken to are really, they're saying it's a good day for South Africa. It's a good day for South Africa. They've done essentially what they wanted to do, to drop it below 50%. But I can't help but question whether or not they are ready to be accepted by South Africans, or rather if South Africans are ready to accept them. Considering if you look at what the number that they have, it's like less than 30%, to be honest, at this stage, and it doesn't look like they're going to get anything more. Are they attractive to South Africa?
No, not at all. I think you have to look at the fact that the way in which the voting has gone, or the results have come that we've seen so far, is actually a vote of no confidence in them. I mean, I think it's quite disappointing. John Steenhuisen, I think, spoke earlier on and said he was quite disappointed. At least he was pointing a finger at one of the charter members, basically saying that they didn't perform as well as they had expected. I think the reality that is beginning to dawn on them is that perhaps they underestimated or they slept on the kind of things that the electorate wanted from the political parties that are converged in the charter. And I think that's exactly what I think they've taken a huge battering, and I don't think South Africans in any way were giving them any vote of confidence in this election.
Yeah. Good, as I say, they're about 28% combined together. Is it a non-starter?
Yeah, no. In as much as South Africans have given the ANC a bloodied nose, they've also given the moonshot people a bloodied nose.
We're not allowed to call it a moonshot.
Yeah, no, but they suggested it as a moonshot, and it didn't quite land at the moon, but
Yes.
so the performance is extremely underwhelming for a number of parties who had believed ahead of this election that on their own they'd be able to form a government, and now they realize that there's a MK they didn't think about. There's all manner of things that they themselves needed to do in order to resonate with the many South Africans who have voted. But maybe, who knows, there's still a couple of million votes outstanding. Maybe those votes are coming straight to them.
Or not. So.
or not. But
Yeah.
But I mean, the performance is really underwhelming.
So I want to pick up on something. So when I was speaking to Nwabisa Makunga, right?
Yeah.
And I asked her, she said, she had said, well, they will probably speak to, in terms of coalition, they will speak to people who kind of have the same principle. They'll say they will decide on principle. And I asked, what is that principle? And the first thing she said was it's the stability of the country, right? And of course, we know the whole narrative about, perhaps the most stable coalition will be an ANC-DA coalition. One, do you think that is possible? And two, I mean, is John going to turn around, and kind of dump his Stokvel here, there, and be like, okay, right, I'm going to have a talk with Ramaphosa?
Yeah, I think two things. So, firstly, the idea of this charter ahead of the election, before seeing what the members of the charter are going to, or how they're going to perform, was itself very flawed. I mean, you could say fatally flawed, but maybe let's just stick with just flawed.
Yeah.
So they come up with this arrangement, not knowing how they're going to perform. Now they perform, and then they go back to where they were before getting into this charter, and they then say, we don't think this one is helpful. This one's campaign was pathetic. This one. They start pointing fingers that the one party, lifted its weight, did the work, and then the other guys were just sleeping on the job.
Yeah.
So there's finger pointing and all manner of things, that are really just unnecessary. So what ought to have happened, I think, is people should have just campaigned, no moonshot, no charter, ahead of the elections, and that once you see the results dashboard, you can then have meaningful conversations with people and say, these ones can bring what on the table, what are the kind of principles that we want to negotiate with this. And as we speak, those kind of conversations are beginning to happen. And these are the real conversations that are based on if you will, reality. The will of the people, the reality that we're seeing there. Not, these parties that represents all manner of, very disparate interests agreed before the elections, and then after the elections they don't agree. I mean,
you guys refer to, and Thabiso, I'll come to you guys refer to the finger pointing that we've seen. I actually spoke to Lerato Ngobe from the Action SA, and I really asked the question about you know, the fact that John Steenhuisen already today in the morning was saying that, well, the campaign of Action SA has been like a dog's breakfast. You know, he was, perhaps let's have a look and see, let's have a look and see how Lerato responded to that. Lerato, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I think Action SA has already said that this is not the result you guys were hoping for. Do you think your message just simply didn't land?
I don't think so. I think that South Africans have a choice to figure out what it is they want, and we must respect the outcome of the election. This is what South Africans say they want. We put our best foot forward to put up a credible alternative to the political establishment. Of course, a lot of things have happened in between, and so we've got to factor that in. But I think for us, it's important for us to look forward to what it is South Africans have said they want and go back to the drawing board and do better. And I think what is good for us as Action SA is that we have really shaken up the political establishment. I mean, all of the top fives, all of the parties that you see on that board, they have now started to take, I mean, the ANC, for example, are starting to take the electorate seriously. You can see that the DA has started to take the electorate seriously. The DA could have governed this country a long time ago, and they have made some serious, egregious mistakes. And so Action SA's entrance into the market has meant that people are now taking the electorate seriously.
Talking about the DA, you guys are obviously part of the moonshot or the
Multi-party
multi-party
charter.
charter. I apologize. Mr. John Steenhuisen this morning or earlier on said, well, he's quite disappointed by your campaign, by Action SA's campaign, calling it a dog's breakfast. Is that appropriate?
We don't care what John Steenhuisen has to say. We've got boots on the ground who've done exceptionally well. The numbers show we've done exceptionally well for a new party, a first-time party that is contesting these elections. In fact, Mr. John Steenhuisen needs to thank us because we realized that, you know, we had to shake him up to come to the realization that they've been sleeping on the job. So they really need to thank us for, you know, the campaign that they've been able to amass. And so we have been a decent competition. We've stood by what we have said, and we're not going to relent on that. We're going to fight as far as we can, and we're going to do that until the political establishment takes South Africans seriously.
On the back of that posture by the DA, I mean, surely you must be having conversations, or you will start perhaps having conversations about coalitions, and that kind of thing. What would be your standpoint, just on the back of the posture that the DA has actually said today?
Well, we are not surprised by the DA's posture. They've always held that posture. What we have withstood, we were withstanding because on behalf of the South African people and what we promised we were going to do. We were not going to hold up on what we feel, but what would be good for the South African public. That's what we've done. And so, you know, whatever posture the DA takes, we will, listen to whatever they have to say. And ultimately, Action SA will uphold what we've started out to do in terms of offering South Africans the alternative that is credible for them to be able to move forward as a nation. So we're not worried about that.
Are you willing to chat to anybody else outside of the multi-party charter?
We're going to chat to everybody else who is aligned to the values of South Africa, the values of South African people, as well as our own values. Because we didn't just come into the space without having values, which is why we've been talking to the people or the parties that are in the multi-party charter. The people we're not going to speak to are the people who have brought our country into the type of calamity that has mandated and made it possible for us to be where we are. Those are the people we're not going to talk to. If people were part of the problem, we're not going to talk to them because they can't bring the solution.
Lerato, thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Well, Thabiso, Lerato is really talking about and saying, well, we don't care what the DA actually has to say, just about their posture of the DA calling them, their campaign a dog's breakfast. The DA is known to have been kind of a bully as far as, any kind of coalition or grouping. And there's always this tension between them and Action SA. Is that even workable, if you're looking at, that charter going forward?
No, I think certainly not. The relationship between the DA and Action SA has been quite a fractious one for a very long time. And I think there are historical examples that we've seen ever since Action SA was formed in terms of how they cooperated in the city of Tshwane, for example, and in Johannesburg, how that whole coalition collapsed. So it was to be expected, I would think. And I think the idea that perhaps what the DA leader had to say doesn't matter to them, I doubt it very much. I think it's quite hurtful, and I think it's quite embarrassing for them because essentially, I think, like Makuru was saying, the idea of this was quite flawed, and flawed in the sense that I think they quite failed to read the room temperature. They failed to understand the South African electorate. So they said, and I think I had a discussion with one of the ACDP members, and he was saying that they were quite surprised, and one of the things that he stated was that they had tried to plead with their voters, and he said Christian voters, to actually not try to split their vote when they are voting in this thing. Just because we are in the charter, do not split your vote. Try to vote for the party that you believe in, its policies and manifesto. And I think the truth of the matter is that what we are beginning to see are the cracks, and those cracks are going to hurt them going forward.
Yeah. Well, I actually did speak to Bosa, right, Makunga, and I'll have a conversation with you about that just after this break. So just a quick break, and then we have a conversation about what Bosa had to say to us. So I had a conversation earlier on with Nobuntu from Build One South Africa with Musi Maimane, interesting name, and she was of course the premier candidate, for Gauteng. Let's perhaps have a look at what she had to say to us. Nobuntu, thank you for joining us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. No slight nerves here and there, but otherwise good.
Is this the result you guys were hoping for?
It's too early to tell, and people say, we're on day 2, but the reality is that the metros have not come in as yet, and we're waiting for that. That's where our greatest support is. So yeah, we're not quite where we wanted to be yet, but we're also saying, let's wait and see once the metros are in.
You are at this stage, I think, under 1%, though. It's a long way, I think, to any kind of significant, significant inroad. I can't imagine that this isn't necessarily the result you were hoping for. I'm just wondering what impact perhaps you think you may be able to make, going forward, notwithstanding the fact that the full results are not in yet.
Look, South Africans have decided and they've made their decision. For us, we have always said that what we stand for, first of all, is building one South Africa, making sure that we're creating a South Africa that is prosperous for all South Africans. What we've always said is that we have built a model that brings power back to the people. We're committed to that, and we continue with that. Right now, what's important to us, though, is to have a voice in it. So let's get into Parliament. Let's get some seats in legislatures. Let's show South Africans what we can do. And from there, I think we only go from there. We've got 2026 coming up. We've got 2029. And so with what's left, we're still hoping to get more seats and to have those voices in the room and that represent South Africans and put power back in the hands of South Africans.
So Makunga, the interesting thing is, at least she's honest to say, well, there is no, this is not the results that they wanted. She's honest enough to say that, but she still says, well, some VDs, as far as the metros are still coming through. I mean, it's game over, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's still a couple of million votes that are still coming. But I suppose the question is, if they couldn't get the numbers they were hoping for with over 10 million votes counted, if there's 6 million votes that remain, how do we know they will get in 6 million what they didn't get in 10 million?
Yeah.
So essentially at this point of the race, they're beginning to look like also rents. So we believed in ourselves. We had a great vision. we thought, wow, man.
She actually, I mean, I'm sure you heard, she actually says we've taken the power back to the people.
Yeah, this is democracy at work, you know, but unfortunately for them, in as much as we look at, you know, the snaking queues and South Africans determined to vote regardless of the glitches and the slowness of the process, but those people who are sitting in the queues saying they are steadfast, they are standing there, they are not going anywhere, they are going to vote. They were not going to vote for them.
You know, colleagues, we speak candidly about this, right? But they actually, it's so stressed. It's so stressed. We speak candidly about this, but there is, and I was saying to Nwabisa Makunga, there is a post-ANC reality, right? That is starting to shape up.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, many of us, it's something that we're not familiar with. South Africa is, you know, is not something that we're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
But what does that post-ANC, and I'm throwing this to you, what does that post-ANC reality actually mean? I mean, if South Africans have said, for example, no to your Bosas, you know, your Rise, and other parties that have kind of come into the fray, and South Africa has said, well, you know, not really, not this time. Yeah. What are we to understand about this post-ANC reality?
I think the message that I get from that is that you've got to look at the parties that are there, and they have to look at themselves and say, what have we got to offer South Africans? And I think the biggest takeaway from this has to be the fact that post-ANC reality is in a form of either political parties having to find each other and work together. Those who were foes may have to now start sitting around the same table and present their ideas and say, how do we serve South Africa better? And basically try to find each other by actually saying negotiation process, as we anticipate that will be, it's a coalition arrangement, it's a give and take situation. Who has got what ideas on the table that can help this country move forward? I think that's a reality, even for the ANC itself.
You talk about parties that are there, right? And one of the parties that is there, and we're going to play a quick video shortly, is obviously the MK party, right? You can debate about whether it's a new entrant, and you know, or it's really like an old dog, so to speak. But it is there, and it really looks like, you know, it's going to be a significant player as far as Parliament is concerned. So earlier on, I caught up with Duduzile Zuma, who is, of course, former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, who really set to go to Parliament. And I asked her if she's actually ready, if she's excited to go to Parliament. I also threw in two questions which, in my view, I thought were interesting. But let's see what she had to say to me. Hi, how are you feeling? Yesterday you were all smiles. It seems today as well. How are you feeling?
I'm still good, still happy. The numbers are going up, which is exciting.
Was this a surprise for you guys?
Not really, actually. Hey? We are happy with where we're at now.
You're about what now? About 1 million votes, I think, so far from what has been counted. So the conversation really from here is about obviously forming, having coalition talks, going to Parliament. It certainly does seem that you will be going to Parliament. Will you yourself? Do you know if you yourself will be going to Parliament, or how is that going to be decided?
I think I'm on the list. I will be going to Parliament. Should we get enough seats? But I think we will have.
So how are you guys going to decide? So I was speaking to one of your colleagues yesterday, and I was asking, there is a 1 to 200 or whatever.
Yes.
Do you guys go according to that list, or how does the party choose who it wants to go, or how does it work?
Yeah, at this point, I think it won't be going according to the list. So even if your peer is number one, you don't necessarily become a president or be the first one in line. We'll just choose from what we have.
I'm having a gendered conversation now, right? So from a gender point of view, you're obviously one of the most prominent women, in MK. What agenda would you be driving if you're talking, one, the conversation about who goes to Parliament, but also when you're in Parliament, what kind of agenda would you be driving?
I think we've got a women's division which is run by Comrade Shirley Brown, and we have a lot of agendas we want to drive in terms of being able to have a voice. Because even in the party, I won't lie to you, we sit there, we're like, okay, hello, so we're still fighting, so we'll carry on the fight even in Parliament.
And an economic story, I'm having an economic conversation now, so the economy of South Africa is what it is. So what agenda would you be driving just as far as getting the economy back on track?
I think doing what President Zuma did under his economy, which was great. We'll just go back to that because the economy under Cyril Ramaphosa was dismal.
when you say go back to that, so if you say perhaps, this is one or two big things that you think, are kind of low-hanging fruits, right? What would those be?
Well, if I'm trying to think now, quick, fast. We'll probably look at things like repo rates to assist in bringing down, food prices or whatever. So things like that, the lower hanging fruits to assist to alleviate poverty, and too much strain on the pocket from the poor people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Makuru, let me first just come to you. So you heard what Dudu had to say. Interesting things for me. So the one is, she says that as far as they list to Parliament, she says, well, they're not necessarily going according to what the sequence of the list is. Pretty much they can pick and choose. We've seen this movie before, in the ANC, for example. Are we expecting a revolt? What's going to happen there? I can imagine if you are number 2 and you're told no, and somebody at number 27, for example, is picked to go to Parliament.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that demonstrates the pointlessness of the list insofar as they're concerned, and I suppose the pointlessness of many other things like the constitution and but it's fanciful. So the laws of the country indicate that you can't tamper with the list for a particular period shortly after the elections. So they'll need to adhere to that to a point, and only after that point can they begin to tamper with the list, unless something drastic happens to somebody who says, I don't want to do this, I can't do this, but they're going to have major problems, firstly with Parliament, and secondly with people who are on the list. If those people don't cooperate, like we've seen with the founder, or is it the leader of the party, whoever the leader of the party is now.
He who he says he is.
And I see that matter has been set out for hearing in court. So there's going to be drama within the party shortly after the elections. And I don't know, it's perhaps an indicator of the state of things, the speed with which they needed to put things together. Yeah, it's just...
just to pick up on that point, Tab, so yesterday I spoke to one of the members of MK, and I actually asked him this very same question, and I said, well, how are you guys going to pick, from the list? And he says, well, President Jacob Zuma will have to sit with his executive and decide effectively who, Am I reading it wrong to say there's kind of like this over-dependency on President Zuma must tell us what we must do, President? What?
It's also a recipe for disaster. If there's no policy coherence, and if there's no clarity of the processes of the party that ought to be followed at certain instances of the party maturing or getting into power, that on itself is a risk. If this was any other business or institution, anybody would have flagged that as a risk and say, hey, we might be having a serious problem that is going to bring about conflict here. Yeah. But also I think it does indicate the extent to which the power is very much centered around the personality. Because what you are essentially getting here is that a lot of the people that basically are representing the party, even here, have no clarity of thought of what has to happen. They first must consult the founder or the owner of the party, and the owner of the party has the last word.
Guys, a quick quiz, right? A quick quiz. Do any of you know if the MK party has a women's structure or league? Or, maybe it's not league, but do you guys know that it does? No. I found out today when I was speaking to her that it does. And of course you would have heard the question I was asking about what agendas would she? She's probably the most prominent woman in MK. Yeah. And I was asking the question just simply about what agenda would she be pushing or they were pushing. To that, and she says, well, we're wanting women to find a voice, and as you've heard, she talks about how even in the party they have to kind of put their hands up and be like, hey, we here. Hugely male-dominated party. Do you really think that they're going to very traditional? Do you think they will find women will find such a voice, or what are we to expect there?
Tabitha was talking about policy coherence within the party and the risks that could be flagged for an organization of this nature where it led differently or where it established as a company. But I mean, I just have difficulties with the pronouncements that are coming out of the party. Like, for example, the thing that you're asking about gender, you know, we are in the media, but we haven't heard the women in MK say, these are the things that we believe in, this is what we're doing, this is our leader. It hasn't come out. But also, I mean, the president of the party, while addressing people elsewhere, just says, as far as I'm concerned, this, you know, what marriages are a disgrace.
Yeah.
You know, like essentially just spewing homophobic stuff. And the media, civil society correctly condemns that. But is what he's saying, to go back to Thabiso's point, is what he's saying related to a particular policy of the party in relation to, you know, same-sex relationships? Or is it his view, and does his view then become the view of the organization? How does it work in the party? So it's murky. It's like Daddy's Pazza Show. Like, so Dudu so when Dudu speaks, is she like the spokesperson of the father or of the organization elected at which Congress, you know, or Daddy has decided, so therefore we as a party are going to do things this way? Like the processes within the organization, the policy framework within the organization is just a mess. It's, you know, as the father would have it.
That's just my last point. Just on the back of that, I mean, you heard one of the questions I was asking is about, you know, what they will do to improve South Africa's economy. And I was really asking kind of twofold, right? So one, if they are in government, but two, just from an influence of, you know, parliament. And of course, you heard what she said. She's like, well, we'll do what, you know, President Zuma did. And I'm like, but what is that? And she's like, well, I'm going to have to think.
Is that not state capture?
No. She's like, well, we'll probably drop the repo rate.
President Zuma did.
I think I found that to be quite, you know, funny, but equally tragic. Funny in the sense that, I mean, there is no, again, clarity of thought. There is no expression that we can find that speaks about what the economic policy of the MK is. What we know of what they represent is a lot more rhetorical. The tragedy part comes in the fact that, again, I think the answer fails to read the temperature, fails to read the room, and South Africans have really spoken very well of what is foremost in their minds in terms of taking this country forward. And the idea that one can find two connecting or disconnected things and speak about a repo rate is quite embarrassing to me, and because it actually speaks of a lack of understanding and lack of comprehension and grasp of the socio-economic issues that the country is facing.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. You need to go and put out a work on a Sunday publication. You and I will probably see what we do for the rest of this weekend. This is Elections 2024 on SowetanLIVE. My name is Nwabisa. It's been an absolutely amazing week. Thank you so much for joining us on every single episode. This is a wrap for us from this week, and we'll have further conversations as the time goes. Thank you so much. Cheers.